The cabin went silent the moment she stopped beside his seat. Everyone felt it, this flight was about to turn into something else. Daniel had boarded early, settled into his first-class seat, and finally relaxed after a long week. The soft hum of the aircraft felt peaceful until a sharp voice cut through the calm. A woman stood beside him, eyes fixed on his seat like it already belonged to her. She claimed there had been a mistake and insisted he move. Daniel stayed calm, politely explaining he had paid for this seat. She scoffed, waving her phone as if that alone gave her authority. Nearby passengers leaned in, sensing tension. The flight attendant approached, her expression professional but alert. The woman crossed her arms and announced she would not sit back there. Daniel said nothing, but his posture remained firm. Something about the way she spoke suggested she was used to getting her way. The promise hung in the air, this wasn't just about a seat. Before anyone could blink, the attendant asked to see boarding passes. The woman smirked, confident this moment would end in her favor. Daniel felt eyes on him, waiting to see who would break first. The plane doors were still open, but the drama had already taken off, and no one knew how far it would go next. The flight attendant scanned both boarding passes with slow precision. Daniels confirmed first class without hesitation. The woman rolled her eyes, tapping her foot as if impatience alone could change facts. She whispered loudly about respect, status, and how people like her deserved better seats. Passengers exchanged looks, unsure whether to watch or look away. The attendant calmly explained that seat assignments were final. That's when the woman changed tactics. She smiled thinly and said Daniel must have tricked the system. Her words floated through the cabin, heavy and uncomfortable. Daniel felt his pulse rise but stayed quiet. He knew arguing would only fuel her confidence. The attendant requested backup. And a second crew member arrived, listening carefully. The woman grew louder, insisting she flew first class all the time. The promise returned, there was clearly more to this story. Daniel finally spoke, his voice steady, saying he simply wanted to sit in the seat he paid for. Silence followed. The woman's smile faded. The crew member asked a question that shifted everything: could she verify her frequent flyer status? The woman hesitated, just for a second. That pause changed the energy in the cabin. Something wasn't adding up, and everyone could feel it. The second attendant requested official verification, not stories or claims. The woman's confidence cracked. She fumbled through her phone, scrolling too fast, explaining too much. Daniel noticed her hands shaking slightly. The crew stayed patient, but firm. A few rows back, a passenger whispered that rules were rules. The woman shot him a glare. She suddenly accused the crew of embarrassment tactics, saying she was being targeted unfairly. The attendants exchanged a look, they had seen this before. Daniel sat quietly, breathing slow, trusting the process. The lead attendant explained that first-class seating required confirmed status or purchase. The woman interrupted repeatedly, her voice echoing through the cabin. The promise now felt close, truth was pressing against the surface. Finally, the system loaded. The attendant's screen showed it clearly. The woman was assigned economy. No upgrade. No status. Just a hope that pressure would work. The attendant spoke gently but clearly. The woman's face flushed. She laughed nervously, saying mistakes happened. But her tone lacked confidence now. Around them, the cabin waited. This wasn't just about seating anymore. It was about honesty. The attendant asked her to gather her things and return to her assigned seat. The woman didn't move. Instead, she doubled down, and that decision changed everything. Refusing to step away, the woman raised her voice again. She claimed humiliation, demanded compensation, and accused Daniel of stealing her place. The cabin filled with tension. The lead attendant stood firm, her calm sharper than any argument. She repeated the request once more. Daniel felt a strange mix of relief and dread. He hadn't done anything wrong, yet the spotlight burned. The woman's tone shifted from confident to desperate. She asked if there was any way to fix this quietly. That single sentence revealed everything. The promise was now clear, this was never a mistake. It was a gamble. The attendant shook her head and explained safety and fairness came first. Other passengers nodded subtly. The woman's eyes darted around, realizing the audience had turned. She tried to sit anyway, but the attendant blocked the aisle with quiet authority. That was the moment the captain was notified. The plane could not move forward like this. Daniel looked out the window, wishing the situation would end. The woman muttered about power and privilege under her breath. When the captain arrived, his presence settled the cabin instantly. He listened, reviewed the details, and nodded once. His decision would end the debate but not the story. The captain spoke calmly, thanking everyone for patience. He confirmed the crew had followed procedure correctly. The woman's seat was not in first class. The rules were clear. She laughed again, too loud, insisting she would comply eventually. But the captain saw the delay, the disruption, the refusal. He explained that cooperation mattered on flights. The woman's smile vanished. She protested, saying she would move now. The captain paused, then said something that stunned her. Compliance after repeated refusal was not enough. Safety and order came first. The promise had arrived, the twist people wait for. He informed her she would need to exit the aircraft. Gasps rippled through the cabin. The woman froze, disbelief etched across her face. She looked at Daniel as if he had caused this. He met her gaze without anger, only quiet resolve. The attendants guided her toward the door. She argued, pleaded, and finally fell silent. The cabin felt lighter with every step she took away. When the door closed behind her, a hush followed. No applause, just relief. Daniel exhaled for the first time in minutes. The captain apologized for the delay and welcomed everyone aboard. But the emotional impact lingered, settling into every seat, including Daniel's. As the plane prepared for departure, passengers avoided eye contact, processing what they'd witnessed. Daniel stared at his hands, reflecting on how quickly entitlement could unravel. The attendant returned, thanking him quietly for his patience. Her words carried weight. This wasn't about winning, it was about standing still when pressured to move. The engines hummed louder now, signaling motion, progress. A passenger nearby whispered that calm had power. Daniel nodded slightly. The promise had been fulfilled, but the lesson remained. The woman's absence was louder than her earlier voice. First class felt different now, not luxurious, but grounded. The flight lifted smoothly into the sky, leaving the conflict on the ground. Daniel looked around and saw shared understanding in strangers' eyes. Rules weren't about control, they were about fairness. The attendants moved gracefully, restoring normalcy. Somewhere between clouds and quiet, the tension dissolved. Daniel leaned back, finally allowing himself to rest. He realized the moment would stay with him longer than the flight itself. Not because of drama, but because of clarity. Sometimes doing nothing, saying little, and trusting truth is enough. The cabin settled into peace, but viewers knew the story wasn't just about an airplane. It was about how entitlement meets its limit and what happens when it does. The flight landed without another word spoken about the incident. Yet everyone carried it with them. Daniel stepped into the terminal feeling lighter, unchanged on the outside, but steadier within. The woman was gone, but the lesson stayed behind. Entitlement had tested patience, authority, and fairness and lost. The crew's calm response showed strength without aggression. Daniel never raised his voice, never demanded validation. He simply stayed where he belonged. That quiet choice had power. Stories like this spread because they reflect something familiar. A moment when pressure says move, but truth says stay. The promise made at the start had been delivered. The twist wasn't revenge or humiliation, it was accountability. And that made all the difference. As people went their separate ways, the flight became just another memory, but the message endured. Rules protect everyone. Calm speaks louder than control. And respect cannot be forced, it must be earned. Daniel disappeared into the crowd, anonymous again, yet carrying a reminder that fairness still works when people allow it to. And that was the final twist in this unbelievable HOA story. If you love the drama, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment sharing your thoughts. It really helps this channel grow.